I think that instead of doing something destructive like screaming, because then that'll give me a headache later, or punching something, I could injure myself, or even running, I could hurt myself there too. I have stories. Don't let me get into that. Welcome to Book Therapy. I'm your host, Kim Patton. There's no way to count how many books are floating around in this world. Some are decent, some are truly terrible, and some are great. Today we're going to take a deep dive into one great book. Together we will discover gems of truth and encouragement to help you face your current season of life. I'm ready. You're ready. Let's get this party started. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Book Therapy. This is actually part 2. So if you missed part 1, go back to the previous episode and listen to that one first because it'll give you an introduction of what we're talking about today. Okay, on with the show. Let's dive into the book. Today we are tackling part 2 of Try Softer by Aundi Kolber. The subtitle is A Fresh Approach to Move Us Out of Anxiety, Stress, and Survival Mode and into a Life of Connection and Joy. Last time I gave a disclaimer that I am not a therapist, and she is. So read the book. But this book helps us get away from the try harder gospel and move towards trying softer. Last time we talked about window of tolerance and limits and boundaries. This was just a preview of how you can recognize when your body is out of its window of tolerance and when you need to step back or take a break or handle something before things get further out of control. Today we're going to talk about the body and mind connection as well as riding the wave of emotions. So first let's do the body and mind connection. This is very interesting because I grew up thinking that our bodies were bad. They were secular, they were flesh. The Bible talks about how the flesh is sinful and how God gives us a new heart and we're going to have a new body when we die. And so it kind of gives this impression in some spiritual communities that our bodies are inherently bad. But the problem with that is that Jesus had a body and his body was not bad. His body was not sinful. He did not have sinful flesh. And he was tempted in his flesh, in his body, but he did not sin. So he experienced life like we do. He has the same type of skin. He has the muscles and the organs and the brain that we have. He experienced emotions like we do. And so he can relate. And I love that because it always gives me a chance to approach him in a relatable way. When I think about praying to Jesus, which sometimes, I don't know if you guys do this too, but sometimes I pray to God and sometimes I pray to Jesus. I'm sure the theologians have something to say about that. But sometimes Jesus is more relatable to me and sometimes I need the comforting, invisible spirit of the Father. So when I think about Jesus, he is he's going to understand what I'm going through physically. And I think about that a lot when I am going through something and I'm asking for help because I know that he's lived on this earth. He knows the physical pain and the emotional pain that we can go through as we struggle through this life. Aundi talks a lot in the body chapter about how her body has changed over time. She talked about her preteen body and how she wanted things that she didn't have. And then as a 20-year-old, she was an athlete. And so she talked about how she struggled to find the feminine picture of womanhood. And then now in her mid-30s, she's had children. She's more self-conscious, but she also is more grateful. And a part of her does feel content, but also not content at the same time. I think many of us can relate to that, just the various seasons that we go through with our physical bodies, especially as women. There's some things that we go through that really change us, and we have to reconcile with that. She says on page 143, just as I am the beloved, so is my body. Just as my psyche deserves compassionate attention, so does my body. My body is me. I read that as saying we can't separate ourselves from our body, and it's not helpful to shame or guilt or hate our way into a better body if that's what we want. She says on page 170, let's further unpack the distinction between our emotions and feelings. As we've already explored, our bodies play a much more significant role than most of us realize as we learn to try softer and stay in our window of tolerance. Yet, when we've learned to white-knuckle our way through life, emotions and feelings can seem as if they're happening to us. As a result, we don't recognize that they are first evoked in our body. I love that our bodies try to tell us things. If we are listening, our body will tell us important information. Even something as small as potty training my little girls, I say, you're listening to your body. Your body is telling you when you have to go to the bathroom. And so every time they go and initiate that on their own, I'm so proud of them because they're listening to their body and they're doing the next right thing. Going back to the window of tolerance where we talked about last time, you can tell when you are feeling something overwhelming by the way your body reacts. Think of if someone is coming up behind you and it's dark at night and they're wearing a hoodie with the hood on top of their head to hide their face. Maybe they're wearing a mask also, and maybe they have their hands shoved in their pocket like they're hiding something, and you're alone. That sounds like a terrible situation. I hope that happens to nobody ever. But if you were in that situation, your heart would beat faster. You would want to run away. You would want to scream. You'd be looking for your phone to call 911. You'd be looking around you to see if there's anyone around you that you could yell to get help. You'd be searching frantically for your key so that you can unlock it and get in right away and then lock the door. Maybe you're looking at your shoes thinking, should I kick them off or should I just start running and just see what happens? All of those things is your body trying to keep you safe. Like I said before, I don't know the brain, but I do know that when you're in panic mode like that, you can't think logically very far. You're thinking about your survival. You're thinking about what you need to do immediately to keep yourself safe and to keep yourself alive. So that body and mind connection is extremely important because you're paying attention to what your body is telling you. Now, think about if you were scared of elevators and your body tells you every time you get in an elevator that you're going to die. Is that true? Should you be listening to your body? Well, your body is telling you that you're scared. You're probably not going to die. So there needs to be a conversation with someone later, a trusted friend or even a therapist or family member that walks through the reasons behind that fear and also gives you a plan of action of what to do next. It may be that elevators are a trigger of something that you experienced before. Or it may be that being in an elevator makes you feel claustrophobic, obviously. And maybe there was a time in your life where you were in a small space and you were scared. Your body remembers, and it's important to walk through that and to be kind to yourself. And this is part of trying softer. Okay, lastly, let's talk about riding the wave of emotion or energy. My brother says that emotions are like riding a big wave of energy. I've also heard emotions be related to the weather. A storm comes and a storm passes. Rain comes, it can be fierce, there can be lightning and thunder, but it passes. Aundi says something similar. She says on page 181, ride the wave. Not long ago, a dear friend came over with her kids for a play date. It had been a while since I'd seen her. As we talked about all the big and small changes in her life, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Remember all those years ago when you told me about riding the wave of emotion? It's one of the best things I've ever learned." We both exhaled and laughed because, yep, we know. Emotions, I had told her, are like waves, meaning the experience of an emotion forms, builds towards its peak, and then decreases. Often, if we can tolerate staying with the emotion for 30 seconds to a minute, we find that it will peak and then dissipate. I have a hard time with this, I'm not going to lie, because I think that it doesn't dissipate as quickly as she said. There have been so many moments where I'm feeling an emotion very strongly and it does not go away. It does not go away right away. I like how my brother describes it as a big wave of energy because there are times where you're feeling something, where I'm feeling something so strong that I just want to run, or I want to punch something, or I just want to feel it with my whole body, or scream. And where does that energy go? I mean, if it really dissipates by itself, it's hard for me to believe that I can ride the wave of that energy and let it dissipate. So the best thing I think I can do in this scenario is walking. I think that instead of doing something destructive like screaming, because then that'll give me a headache later, or punching something, I could injure myself, or even running. I could hurt myself there too. I have stories. Don't let me get into that. But walking, I think, releases the energy that will immediately bring relief. Now, there's not always an opportunity to stop everything and go for a walk. I understand that. But my husband will take our little girls for a quick walk if they're having a hard time calming down and just are crying or screaming. He will grab their little hand and just go on the sidewalk and just kind of walk things out. I didn't used to do that necessarily, but he told me about it and I kind of was like, I'm going to try that one day. And I did. And it's just the combination of moving your body and then also being a little bit distracted. And honestly, holding my daughter's hand was helpful for both of us because it grounded us and we were able to get through a difficult moment together. And you kind of show the person that you're there, they're not alone, but let's kind of move and ride this wave until it dissipates. I do like the definition she gives on page 170. She says, the sensations and nervous system states that we experience in our bodies are called emotions. The names we give those expressions are feelings. She also says, when we don't learn to name and become familiar with our emotional experiences, we don't have a vocabulary for what we're experiencing, which can leave us feeling disoriented and cause parts of our brains to be disconnected from one another. On that same page, she gives a giant chart of feelings, which cracks me up. I want one of these. I want a feelings chart. I think growing up, we had a magnet on a refrigerator with like some cartoon character with like 3 strands of hair sticking out of his head. And above the character, it had a feeling. And then there was another magnet that was like a frame. And you could say, today I feel, and then you could put the magnet wherever you wanted. I don't remember how long that lasted, but it was on our refrigerator for quite a long time. And I think that that is kind of helpful for just pinpointing exactly what we're feeling and why we're feeling it. I love evaluating what is underneath the emotions because sometimes I feel like I can evaluate and I know what's going on underneath, and sometimes I can't. I don't know what's going on underneath. It's just so easy to snap at someone when underneath you're feeling embarrassed about something that happened, or you're feeling ashamed, or you're feeling super tired or super hungry. And I think it's a very mature thing to say, it's not about this. It's about something else. Yes, I snapped at you for that, but really I was feeling incredibly vulnerable and like I couldn't trust anybody because I just got a text from a friend that made me feel really yucky inside. And I'm sorry that I acted that way towards you, but I was really taking it out on you when those emotions were strong and overwhelming and I didn't know what to do with them. It takes a lot of humility to admit to someone that you are treating them badly for no reason. No reason that they did. You're taking something out on them that they're completely unaware of. I believe this happens all the time. I could ask myself every day, am I really mad about that? Am I really frustrated about that? Or am I frustrated about how it affects me and my self-image? When my daughter was pulling her hair out and one day I just realized, oh my word, she's like balding in the back of her head. She had been pulling her hair out for a long time, months probably. I didn't realize it would make her be bald in the back of her head until she was. She had so much hair, I didn't even think about, oh, if you pull it out, then it's not there anymore. I just thought she had, spare. The day that I realized it, I was mad about something, and then I just sat down and cried. And my older daughter came up to me, and I was like, baby, I'm sad. I'm sad because sister is pulling out her hair, and she's going to have no hair left. And I realized that under that frustration was just sadness. It was vanity. What is she going to look like if she pulls all her hair out? And then it was vanity for me. What kind of mom am I going to look like if she pulls all her hair out and she has bald patches on her head? But also it was sadness for her as a person feeling the need to pull her hair out of her head. And that whole experience just taught me a lot about how we can react to things and how we try to cover it up, or how we try to tell ourselves, that it's not true, when really we just have to face the truth. And the truth was that she was struggling, and that the way she coped with her struggles was by sucking her thumb and pulling her hair. And it's not over. That journey is not over. We still are walking that path with her. It's not as bad as it used to be, but I face questions from people about her hair, or I'll bring it up and they'll kind of ask more questions of, well, can you do this? Or I don't really notice the bald spot, blah, blah, blah. So for me, it's much more noticeable because she's my daughter and I've been walking this journey with her for almost 2 years. But I've learned that it's not necessarily about the hair. It's about our self-image, or someone else's self-image, and what people think of us. It's scary that I care so much about what people think. And that's something that I'm definitely working on. I'm going to wrap it up with this. We didn't talk a lot about trauma, but in her books, she does talk so much about trauma and how it affects our bodies, our minds, our hearts. And she just does such a good job. So I highly recommend this book. But she talks about on page 168 how John 11:35, which is the shortest verse in the Bible, says Jesus wept, and what that means. And she says, as the creator of their neurobiological structures, I suspect he even recognized that their limbic systems needed to move through the emotions they were feeling so the pain didn't become a form of trauma. Notice that this God in flesh did not rush Mary and Martha along, but instead provided empathy and patience. This is a model for us as we seek to pay compassionate attention to our own experiences. I love this so much because our goal is to limit trauma for those around us and for ourselves. And one way we can do that is by paying attention and being compassionate and help leading people through their emotions and their struggles so that they feel heard and seen and accepted and loved in the moment, and are able to feel the feelings that they need to feel and grow through it and feel loved throughout the process. This is easier said than done because there have been many moments where I do not want to sit with someone in their emotions. I do not. I want to run away and I want to be mad and I want to say, no, I'm not doing this with you. But if we can learn to sit with those who are grieving, to sit with those who are angry, and be there for them with kindness and compassion and patience, and to do that for ourselves, instead of pushing these things away and running away from them, if we can embrace it as a natural human process, then I think we can learn from it and we can grow, and we're going to be much more empathetic to other people who are going through the same things. Thank you for listening to another episode of Book Therapy. Today we wrapped up Try Softer by Aundi Kolber. I cannot recommend her enough. This girl is so smart and she's so kind and gracious, and we need her in our lives. Everybody needs to read her books just for the sheer importance of learning about their bodies and their minds and their brains and their emotions and feelings. You can find Aundi Kolber online, and also her books come with separate guided journals, which I think is a fabulous idea if you can't afford therapy. Honestly, reading through these books and going through the guided journal is extremely beneficial for helping you process through what you're going through in your own personal life. All right, that's it for today. See you next time.